Catholic Church is known for the practice of recognizing certain individuals who were renowned for holiness during their lives in this world, whom we call the saints. Last Sunday, Holy Father canonized a new group of people, including two of them who lived in this part of the world. One was from Germany, but she settled here when she was 2. The other one was a member of the Mohawk Indian tribe. She died in what is now New York State. In fact, there's a shrine there in Oriesville, it's called. Her Christian name was Terry, or Catherine, is really what it is in English. And she did not have an easy life, which is often the case with holy people. Sometimes maybe the tendency is for some people to think that holy people have a kind of charmed existence, but if that's anything but true. Terry was an orphan. She was 3 years old. Her parents had died in a smallpox epidemic. And then she contracted the disease herself, and it left her face disfigured to a point. Also, it affected her eyesight. When she was a young woman, she decided to become a Catholic, and the reason for that was because there were Jesuit missionaries there, and she became very close to the missionaries. The problem was that her community did not allow her to have any religious freedom, which is an issue even today, a pending issue in our country. So what she did was she went to another place. She walked, I believe, a couple of 100 miles into the interior of Canada, where she lived her last days, the last couple of years of her life. She was able to go to Mass on a regular basis. In fact, she went every day. She prayed the rosary and was very committed to the faith. When she was, even before she was a Catholic, she was still under the influence of the faith. She had given to God a private vow of virginity, which was not the kind of thing that her people respected. And even today, there are many people who don't understand why would anyone take any sort of vow of virginity, or as it is often called, celibacy for the kingdom of God. It's another example of a world that doesn't understand things that are of heavenly origin. Jesus said to people who were challenging him about the resurrection, he said, or about how long is marriage? He said, well, in the next age there is no marriage. People are neither married nor given in marriage, but they live like the angels in heaven. The Catholic Church has fittingly interpreted this as being what the sign value of celibacy or consecrated virginity is. It has to do with our calling, which ultimately is a calling that needs a new way of life, a spiritualized existence. With God and with the angels, it doesn't mean that we become angels. The angels are spiritual creatures. At the resurrection, we become spiritualized human beings. We retain our sexuality, won't become other than human, but we become the fulfillment of what it means to be human. In the meantime, most people are called to marriage. I'm very happy that we have opportunity today to help Matt and Celia DeZanko celebrate their 50 years of marriage. It's really a great blessing that we have people who have, through the providence of God, because obviously no one knows when death will come, and through the graces that He gives in the sacrament, we have been faithful for many years. As a priest, I see much of this. People who have spent their lives really giving of themselves in service to their spouse, to their family members, to their children. We're all, in some way, shape, or form, indebted really to the great and wondrous establishment of marriage by the Lord himself in the book of Genesis. As the first order of business said, he made the male and female and said, go forth and multiply. Fill the earth and subdue it. We live in a world now, or a society that has become so secularized that marriage is under a great attack in so many ways. The permanence of marriage, the exclusivity of marriage, and now even the complementarity between the sexes. And the list goes on and on. When people get away from God, what happens is they don't appreciate sacred things. And marriage is one of them. It has become, for many people, a very disposable item, or at least nothing to take that seriously. We have to understand that people were getting married long before the state of Ohio or the U.S. Western civilization. This is as old as man himself. And much good comes from it. Mom and dad, of course, are people who are agents of God. Even people who don't believe in God, they are parents, they're agents of God, who enter into this union of husband and wife. They are telling the world, if not the world at large, at least their own children, something about the reality, the presence, and power of God. It's interesting that some of the great atheists of the 20th century, people like Sigmund Freud and others, one of the common threads was that they didn't get along with their parents, or at least with their fathers. Very interesting. It goes to show, I suppose, that when a child, a small child, or even an infant looks up at his parents, he really sees the face of God. And the Lord himself made them male and female in his image. There's something about the union of husband and wife that images God. It's something that the world needs to see. I never thought that as a priest, I get to the point where I actually have to convince people to get married. Now, I'm not a matchmaker, so don't be calling my office with requests, you know. But what I'm saying is, statistically, and the Census Department has verified this, but I've suspected this. More and more people are simply not getting married. And Immaculate Conception is a good example of that. I mean, if you go back 30 years ago, you look in the record books, you might find 25 or 30 weddings every year on a regular basis. Now we're having 3, 4, with consistency. And you ask another priest, probably tell you the same thing. Marriages are way down, which is very, very sad. It means some people are not getting married at all, and sometimes people are living together without marriage, and other people are confused. We have many young people who are confused about their vocations in life. I'll tell you, one of the things that is a great impediment to learning a vocation is when a young person in particular lives a life of impurity. It puts a damper on any real clarity that he has of what the Lord wants him to do with his life. And we can say that even regarding priestly and religious vocations, that it's very important for people to follow the will of God. If we follow the will of God, we'll never go wrong. Now, I'm not saying we'll have an easy life. Anybody who enters into marriage, who's married for any length of time, knows better than I do that it's a challenge. Being a priest is a challenge. Being a consecrated religious is a challenge. And being a single person in the world with a vocation to bring the gospel of Christ to others and to be a sign to other people of the reality of God is also a challenge. I mean, one of the problems today is that many people are looking for an easy life. And it's characteristic of our culture for people to look to think, what can I get out of this, or whatever it is. Well, if people go into a marriage with the idea of what's in this for me, I can tell you they're going to have problems. They go into the marriage with the idea of, how can I be the best husband or wife I'm supposed to be, the mother and father that I'm supposed to be, makes a big difference. People also have to be patient. Sometimes people come in to see the priest, which is fine. I wish more people would come in to the priest rather than going right to the lawyer for divorce. Come to the priest. They'll say, look, we're really having trouble. Well, how long have you been married? You've been married 2 to 3 years. One of the reasons you're having troubles is you haven't yet adjusted to living with somebody. It takes 5 years really to make an initial adjustment. People have to be patient. The other thing is, Catholic people should bring the Lord Jesus into their marriage. Pray together. Many people do come to Mass, which is good. Pray at home. Jesus said, where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I am in their midst. Take that to heart. I mean, Jesus is all about bringing people together. One proof of it is we're here this morning together, but even the universal church throughout the world. We're at Mass, this location, but we're also in solidarity with people, millions of people throughout the world who are at Masses in various venues, cathedrals, shrines, parish churches, even other places, prisons, hospitals. Jesus made himself present. He brings people together. When you have raised up the Son of Man, he will draw all people to himself. This is what Jesus said. You bring Jesus to marriage, brings people together. Gives people the wherewithal to live in communion with one another because they're in communion with Jesus and with God. Our culture is very individualistic. The American culture is very individualistic. I don't need anybody. I don't need any help. I don't need my family. I can do everything I need to do on my own. That's a very secular mentality. It's not a good one. We're called to communion. Heaven itself is a communion of saints, and all of the heavenly creatures God made, called angels, who are actually spirits. They don't have wings. That's an artist's depiction. But all of the blessed beings in union with God himself. The place where a person has complete isolation and is not with others is called hell. We don't want that. We want communion. Marriage is a very real concretization of communal living. It's not easy to live in community. As one abbot of a monastery once said, these immortal words. You can write these down after Mass if you dare to do that. He said, when you live with other people, sooner or later somebody's going to tell you what's wrong with you. Isn't that true? That's hard to take, let me tell you, but the scripture says, friend shakes friend as iron sharpens iron, meaning sometimes we have rough edges that have to be worn down. That's okay. Maybe the people with whom we're living, maybe the spouse, will allow us to be smoothed out like a rock. You take a rock and put it into a river. If after a while it becomes completely smooth, it's like a ball. It's kind of an amazing thing, but it's the forces of nature sanding down the rough-edged rock. We can be also sanded down. I mean, it's a good thing. Catholics are sometimes derided for believing in purgatory, but what do you think this world is? I mean, purgatory means purification. And we have to be purified. If we're not purified, then we're not ready to see God because we have too many rough edges. So marriage is, in a sense, it's an opportunity for purification. That's a good thing. And there are many other opportunities for purification. The thing is, the Lord is asking us for fidelity. Fidelity means faithfulness, to be true to what he wants us to be. And nobody's perfect. That is for sure. But we, as Catholics, we have the sacrament of reconciliation. We should make use of it. I think too often, with some people anyway, people can put it off as being, well, I don't need this. We all need this. I mean, if the Pope goes to confession, then he does. Very regularly. And believe me, I can't imagine probably just little minor imperfections or whatever, but nonetheless, he's aware that he needs to grow. We all do. We all have to grow. So today we think about what the Lord has done, what he provides for us, and what our heavenly calling is. Now, toward the end of this week coming up on Thursday, it's called the Feast of All Saints. The Feast of All Saints recognizes everyone who has attained this level of communal bliss with God. People who are unknown to us. I suppose many members of the family and so forth. The Feast of All Saints is a holy day of obligation for Catholics. It should be a very joyous time for us because we're called to be holy and we're called to live with God ultimately. Following day, on Friday, is the Feast of All Souls, which is not a day of obligation, but it is a day of prayer for those who are undergoing purification after this life. And it really is a work of solidarity and work of charity to reach out to people who have left this world in a state of friendship with God, but who have rough edges. I mean, let's face it, there aren't too many Mother Teresa's walking around, you know. Most of us have some sort of rough edges or defects in charity or other areas of life, even if we're living in a state of friendship with God. So let's take these things to heart and practice our faith with ardor, and maybe then we can open up other people's hearts to God, to Jesus, to the faith, to the church, to salvation, and to life.